In the old days, when I went to college, we used to talk of countries taking off on some sort of a trajectory of high growth. Typically, countries would mobilize savings, raise their rates of investment, get a few other things right, and get on to experience high growth, which will take them out of their low-level equilibria. Experience has taught us that this escape is typically not forever, and countries often stumble again when they reach a higher level of income. The studies on documenting the phenomenon of middle income trap have shown that growth pathways have seen fewer traps in Asia than in Latin America. There is usual agreement on the fact that somehow the East Asian countries, particularly the Southeast Asian countries, were able to reform their policies, change their institutional orientation, and make a successful transition from low income to middle income to higher income status. But more recently, there has been growing concern with middle income traps in Asia, particularly in China and also in India. Now, this is clearly relevant for India, where we made a transition from a low-income country to a low middle-income country only about 9 years ago. After a long period of very slow growth, India actually experienced a growth rate of close to 8% per annum in the period from 2000 to 2010. But India is now struggling with a sharp slowdown to an average growth of about 5% per annum over the last 3 years. So, has India hit the middle income trap? With a per capita GDP of about US dollars 5,000 on PPP basis, India, as I said, is a low middle income country. It's worth pointing out that India did not get to the status of low middle income country through a conventional route of rapid growth of the manufacturing sector, which provided employment opportunities for surplus labor from the agricultural sector, gave them higher productivity jobs to be absorbed in. Instead, India's growth was led by the services sector and some knowledge-based industries such as auto components, pharmaceuticals, and more recently, automotive sector. In fact, the conventional route via the less skill-intensive manufacturing sector, labor-intensive manufacturing sector, is still blocked in India because of the policy regime. The fact that the transition to faster, more inclusive, and sustainable growth is being attempted in India in a democratic political regime, a federal institutional framework, a diverse society with still a good 250 or so million people below the poverty line makes the challenge of avoiding traps that much larger. So how is India to break through the low middle income trap? You could even ask, how is India to ensure that it does not slide back into the low income category? The 12th five-year plan of India, which began last year, had actually spelt out 3 scenarios. Normally, India's 5-year plans give a single target growth rate over the 5-year period for the economy. This time, the Commission had given 3 scenarios. One was with concerted effort to get to a target of 8% growth if policies and institutions were reformed in a certain manner, which they listed. The second, if it was business as usual, then you will get about 6 to 6.5%. And third, if you actually even reversed on some policies and there was a policy logjam, you could even get down to 5 to 5.5% growth. In the last 3 years, India has actually enacted the most pessimist scenario out of these. The global slowdown has had something to do with this, but not all. As the Reserve Bank of India governor pointed out, maybe 1/3 of the loss in GDP is because of the global slowdown, which would bring it down from 8% to 7%. But the remaining 1.5% to 2% loss of GDP growth is because we've got into some sort of trap or the other, some policy logjam, some inability to get on with the business of moving to the next level of higher income. So I would list 3 sets of traps very in a bullet point frame, and we can come back to it when we discuss in the later period. The first set of traps would be the continuing challenges of infrastructure, macroeconomic stability, and low employment intensity of growth in India. The infrastructure challenge has become more complex because today it has not only to do with the government finding money to build infrastructure, but government providing an environment in which government funds can be leveraged with private funds. And you have public-private partnership, which raises the whole question of transparency, competitive bidding, particularly in a society which is going for elections every 5 years. You are democratically accountable. So that's one set of challenges relating to infrastructure. The infrastructure challenges have become harder also because of environmental sensitivity. We need environmental clearances, but are we going about them the right way, or are we taking a long time to make up our mind on whether to give a specific clearance or not? And this has actually ended up becoming a bit of a bottleneck in going ahead with infrastructure projects. Acquisition of land, with a new Land Acquisition Act, that is creating its own problems for getting land, which is crucial for infrastructure development. Macroeconomic stability, again, the task has become more challenging as India becomes more open to trade and capital flows. And it has to really balance between exchange rate management, economic growth, inflation. The third continuing challenge that India's growth all along has not generated employment. It's not been employment intensive. In fact, there have been periods when employment in the formal sector has actually declined, and that's a major challenge. The second set of traps are the new challenges that have emerged. First, scarcity of skills. In India, we typically used to hear that we have thousands of scientists, engineers, and we don't have to worry about skills. But we only needed to see growth rate of 8% per year in 10 years to show up our skill deficit in what we had prepared our labor force for. And this is extremely important because India today is at a point in its demographic curve where 50% of India's population is below the age of 25, and the percentage of working age population to total population is going to continue to rise until 2040, unlike China, where a decline has already begun in 2010. So when you have a young population, more educated population, an impatient population, scarcity of skills, rising aspirations in an open society where we see where other Asian countries are going, that has created a very, very important challenge. A second new challenge, because of the particular position where we are in today, a process of structural transformation, is the challenge of urbanization. Now, this actually is the regular challenge that you normally hear about for going from a low-income economy to a middle income, or low middle income to higher middle income. But the population, urban population in India is just about 33%. And if we succeed in pushing our growth rate up, this population is expected to rise very rapidly. We in India have neither planned for urbanization, nor have we put in systems of delivery where services, basic services of water, sanitation, public transport, connectivity, etc., are there in Indian cities and towns, which really would act as the engines of growth. You've heard of Bangalore, Hyderabad, and a few cities, Ahmedabad, that have really fueled growth in the previous 10 to 15 years. We need many more cities of that kind. These cities are now showing the stresses of lack of urban planning. So I would say in terms of the middle income trap, that is a very, very important thing. Finally, the most important challenge, a new challenge that has emerged, is that as you get into a rapid growth phase, your institutions need to adjust and adapt to a rapid growth scenario. And there is evidence of increasing disconnect between the existing set of institutions and what is needed for a rapidly growing economy. I mentioned the Land Acquisition Act, and this set of challenges goes beyond just a few legislations or a few regulatory frameworks. It even goes to the point of effective functioning of legislature, the executive, and the judiciary within the framework of constitution, but accepting the new norms as the economy moves on. Again, the rules of engagement between the center, the states, and the local governments have to change. Urbanization requires much greater decentralization, much more devolution of funds to the cities so that there can be more accountability at ground level. And that in our setup so far is missing. We have had effective decentralization to the state government levels. And that is why you begin to see diversity in performance across different states of India. Where you've had a more progressive state government, it has really pushed the agenda of growth and it has moved ahead. More and more states are falling in line in this respect, but they are unwilling or reluctant to transfer power at the third tier, where it will have to be done if urbanization is to be planned. So it is difficult to fit these traps that I have described into the standard discussion on traps. For example, it's not the inability to move from education to innovation. We have quite a bit of innovation, but we also have not so good a system of basic education. Again, we have the dual burden of lifting the underemployed labor in agriculture, which constitutes 50% of the labor force still. And at the same time, we have the burden of raising the productivity of those that are employed in the industry and services sector. India's middle class may not be so large in terms of percentages, but its absolute numbers are beginning to matter. And a conservative estimate would put India's middle class at somewhere between 250 million to 300 million. So overall, India's institutions are under stress, as the experience of 2000 to 2010 shows. It is possible to overcome the impediments to rapid growth, but when we strive for inclusive growth, when we strive for an environmentally sustainable growth, we need to anticipate the change both within India, within South Asia, within the world, and actually help shape the external environment within which India can find its rightful place and prepare for this change in an ever-changing external and internal environments. Thank you.